The massive silver doors of the Galactic Council chamber swung open with a soft hiss. Tom Reed took a deep breath, straightened his navy blue uniform, and stepped forward. His footsteps echoed through the vast, circular room as hundreds of alien eyes turned to study Earth's first ambassador. The chamber itself was a marvel of engineering, with towering crystalline walls that stretched up into darkness. Floating platforms held representatives from over 50 species, arranged in tiers like a giant theater. Some delegates had tentacles, others had wings, and a few were just clouds of shimmering gas. Species 4872, humans of Earth, announced the metallic voice of the Council's eye, approaching for initial presentation. Tom fought back a smile as he heard several council members whispering. He caught fragments of their conversations through his translator. They still use combustion engines. Did you know they only achieved spaceflight a century ago? Look how fragile it appears. The head council member, a tall being with golden scales and 4 arms, leaned forward on his platform. Welcome, human Tom Reed. We have reviewed your species application for council membership. Tom bowed slightly, exactly 15 degrees as protocol demanded. Thank you, honored council. Earth is grateful for this opportunity. Yes, the head council member waved one of his hands dismissively. Though we must note that your species is quite young. Many here question if humans are ready for full council participation. A ripple of agreeing murmurs spread through the chamber. Tom noticed how some delegates didn't even bother hiding their smirks. With respect, Tom replied calmly, age doesn't always equal wisdom. Humanity has overcome many challenges in our short history. Like learning to make fire, someone called out, causing scattered laughter. The head council member raised his hands for silence. You must understand our position, human Reed. Some species here spent millennia developing before joining us. Your kind has barely left your solar system. Tom stood straighter, his blue eyes scanning the room. True. But in just 3 centuries since our industrial age, we've gone from horse-drawn carriages to interstellar travel. Imagine what we could achieve as part of the council. Bold words rumbled a massive delegate that looked like a living mountain. But words mean little here. Actions prove worth. Then give us a chance to prove ourselves, Tom said, his voice carrying clearly through the chamber. Humanity excels at exceeding expectations. The head council member studied Tom for a long moment. Very well. You may establish an embassy on this station. Show us these human capabilities you speak of. But remember, full membership must be earned. As Tom left the chamber, he heard more whispers behind him. They still didn't take humans seriously, still saw Earth as a backwater planet filled with primitive beings. But that was fine. Tom smiled to himself as the doors closed behind him. They would learn soon enough what humanity could do. After all, humans had a long history of proving others wrong. 3 weeks after his arrival, Tom found himself back in the council chamber. This time, the atmosphere was different. Gone were the dismissive looks and mocking whispers. Instead, tension filled the air like a heavy fog. We face a crisis, the head council member announced, all 4 hands gripping his podium. The Night Stalkers have attacked another colony. 37 dead, hundreds injured. The chamber's massive display screen lit up, showing footage of creatures that made Tom's breath catch. They were enormous, easily the size of Earth's ancient mammoths. Their pitch-black bodies seemed to absorb light, and each had 6 powerful legs ending in razor-sharp claws. But it was their heads that drew attention. 3 sets of glowing red eyes and jaws that could snap a car in half. What exactly are they? Tom asked, studying the footage carefully. The mountain-like delegate rumbled. The galaxy's perfect predators. No natural enemies. Impossible to tame. They've destroyed settlements across 12 systems. We've tried everything, a floating gas cloud delegate added. Barriers don't stop them. Weapons barely scratch them. They're too intelligent for traps. Tom watched as the footage showed a Night Stalker easily leaping over a 20-foot energy barrier. Has anyone tried communicating with them? Laughter erupted through the chamber, but it wasn't mocking this time. It was bitter, tired. Communicate. The head council member shook his scaled head. Human Reed, these aren't simple beasts. Every species here has tried their methods. The best minds in the galaxy have failed. The Night Stalkers kill anything that approaches. The hive mind of Sector 7 lost 3,000 drones trying to establish psychic contact. Someone called out. The crystal beings of Andromeda tried using their empathy rays. The Night Stalkers ate their emitters. Tom stepped closer to the screen, watching how the creatures moved. Something about their behavior tugged at his memory. They hunt in groups, he observed. Yes, making them even more dangerous, the head council member said. We've had to abandon dozens of promising colonies because of these monsters. And you've tried everything? Tom asked, still watching the footage intently. Everything. Several voices called out at once. Tom turned to face the council, a small smile playing on his lips. Everything except human methods. The chamber went quiet. The head council member leaned forward. Are you suggesting? Let me try, Tom said firmly. Earth has a long history of working with predatory species. Maybe we'll see something you missed. Murmurs filled the chamber again, but different this time. Curious. Considering. You realize. The mountain delegate rumbled. That failure means death. Tom nodded. Sometimes the biggest risks bring the greatest rewards. Let me study them. Let me try what no one else has tried. The head council member conferred quietly with his advisors for several minutes. Finally, he turned back to Tom. Very well, Human Reed. You have our permission to attempt communication with the Night Stalkers. But know this. We will not be responsible for what happens to you. Tom's smile widened. Thank you, honored council. I'll need access to all your data on them. And one more thing. Yes, I'll need a smaller ship, one big enough for just me, and a Night Stalker. The shocked silence that followed was exactly what Tom had expected. Tom sat in his dimly lit office aboard the space station, surrounded by holographic displays showing hundreds of Night Stalker encounters. For 2 weeks straight, he had studied every piece of data the council possessed about these creatures. His eyes were tired, but he couldn't stop watching. Play that one again, he told the computer, pointing to a recording of a Night Stalker pack hunting. The scene replayed, showing 6 of the massive creatures working together to bring down a transport ship. Something about their movements kept nagging at his mind, the way they communicated, the way they coordinated their attacks. It was familiar. Tom pulled up images from Earth's historical archives, displaying them side by side with the Night Stalker footage. Computer, show me ancient Earth wolves hunting in packs. The comparison made Tom sit up straighter. The patterns were almost identical. The way they surrounded their prey, how they used distraction tactics, even their body language. He quickly made more comparisons. Social structures, territorial behaviors, even their warning signals. It's not just hunting, he muttered to himself. It's everything. The door chimed, and a small robotic assistant rolled in carrying fresh coffee. Tom had been working so long that the station staff had started checking on him regularly. Sir, the robot beeped. The council requests an update on your progress. Tom grabbed the coffee and grinned. Tell them I'm ready to present my findings. An hour later, he stood before the council again, this time with his own presentations ready. Honored council, Tom began. I've discovered why no one has been able to tame or communicate with the Night Stalkers. He paused for effect. You've all been trying to dominate them. Confused murmurs filled the chamber. Look at your methods, Tom continued, bringing up footage. Force fields to contain them, weapons to subdue them, psychic attacks to control their minds. Every approach has been based on showing dominance or superiority. Of course, the mountain delegate rumbled. They are beasts to be controlled. Tom shook his head. No, they're pack animals with a complex social structure. On Earth, we learned long ago that you don't tame pack predators through dominance. You earn their trust by becoming part of their pack. He showed them images from Earth's history, humans working with wolves, forming partnerships that eventually led to domestic dogs. The Night Stalkers aren't just random killers. Tom explained. "They're protecting their territory, their pack. Every time you've tried to control them, you've presented yourself as a threat. But what if we tried something different? What if we approached them as potential pack members instead of enemies?" "Impossible," someone shouted. "You'll be killed instantly." "Maybe," Tom admitted, "but I've been studying their body language, their social cues. They're not so different from Earth's ancient pack predators. I believe I can communicate with them using signals they'll understand." The head council member leaned forward. "And how do you propose to test this theory?" Tom's answer was simple. "I need to meet one face to face. No weapons, no barriers. Just me and a young Night Stalker." The chamber erupted in protests, but Tom stood firm. He knew he was right. The key to taming the galaxy's deadliest predator wasn't through force. It was through understanding and respect. Now he just had to prove it. The observation deck fell silent as Tom stepped into the massive containment area. Through the reinforced windows, dozens of council members watched with a mixture of horror and fascination. Many had bet he wouldn't even show up. Inside the containment area, Tom wore no protective gear except a simple environment suit. He had insisted that armor would only make him appear threatening. A young Night Stalker, recently captured, waited at the other end of the chamber. It was smaller than the adults, but still twice Tom's size. "Last chance to back out," crackled the head council member's voice through Tom's earpiece. "Not a chance," Tom replied softly. "Just remember, no matter what happens, don't intervene." The young Night Stalker noticed him immediately, all 6 of its red eyes fixed on Tom, and its massive head lowered. A deep growl echoed through the chamber. Tom stopped moving. Slowly, carefully, he lowered himself into a crouch. The Night Stalker's growl deepened. "They're pack hunters," Tom muttered to himself. "Show submission, but not weakness." He kept his eyes lowered but not completely down. A sign of respect without total submission, just as wolves used. Then, moving with deliberate slowness, he turned his body slightly sideways, making himself appear less threatening. The growling stopped. On the observation deck, the council members pressed closer to the windows. Nobody spoke. Nobody moved. The Night Stalker took a step forward, then another. Its claws clicked against the metal floor. Tom remained perfectly still, controlling his breathing, keeping his posture neutral but not afraid. When the creature was 30 feet away, it stopped. Tom could feel its breath, smell its wild, metallic scent. Slowly, the Night Stalker lowered its head to Tom's level. "Good," Tom whispered. "That's good." Moving with infinite patience, Tom raised one hand, palm out, fingers spread. The universal gesture of peace among humans, and, he hoped, a sign the Night Stalker would understand as non-threatening. The creature tilted its head. One set of eyes blinked, then another. It took another step forward. 20 feet, 10 feet, 5. On the observation deck, several council members turned away, unable to watch what they were sure would be Tom's violent end. The Night Stalker's head was now just feet from Tom's outstretched hand. It could bite him in half with a single snap of its jaws. Instead, it sniffed the air curiously. Then, to the absolute shock of everyone watching, the young Night Stalker pressed its nose against Tom's palm. The touch was gentle, almost delicate. Tom felt the creature's warm breath against his skin. Carefully, he moved his fingers, giving the lightest scratch. A sound filled the chamber, not a growl, but a deep, rumbling purr. "By all the stars," whispered someone on the observation deck. The young Night Stalker stepped closer, its body relaxing. Tom slowly stood up, maintaining contact, scratching behind what he had identified as a sensitive spot near its sensor organs. The purring grew louder. Tom clicked his earpiece on. "Honor Council," he said quietly, still scratching the content Night Stalker. "I believe this proves my theory. They're not mindless killers. They're intelligent, social creatures. And they can be reached, if we approach them the right way." The silence from the observation deck was deafening. In the 3 months since his first contact, Tom had practically lived in the containment area. He had named the young Night Stalker Shadow, and their bond grew stronger each day. The council's observation deck was never empty. There was always someone watching, studying, learning. Today, Tom sat cross-legged on the floor, Shadow's massive head resting beside him. He gently stroked the creature's light-absorbing fur while reading reports on his tablet. "Look at this," he said to the watching council members. "Shadow's stress levels have dropped by 80%. She's sleeping better, eating normally, and showing increased social behaviors." As if to prove his point, Shadow rolled onto her side, all 6 legs stretched out lazily. Her purring filled the chamber like distant thunder. "Remarkable," said the head council member, who had taken to visiting daily. "But she's just one individual. A juvenile. The adults." A deep rumble interrupted him. 2 adult night stalkers in the adjacent containment area had approached the dividing barrier. Instead of their usual aggressive displays, they were watching Tom and Shadow with obvious curiosity. "They'd been doing that more often," Tom explained, not moving from his spot. "Pack creatures learn from each other. Shadow is showing them that humans aren't threats." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small device, a simple ball that emitted low-frequency vibrations. Tom had designed it based on the Night Stalker's own communication patterns. Shadow's ears perked up at the sound. She knew what was coming. Tom rolled the ball across the floor. Shadow bounded after it, moving with surprising grace for her size. She caught it gently in her massive jaws and brought it back, dropping it at Tom's feet. The adults watched intently. "It's not just play," Tom explained to his audience. "It's building trust, establishing communication, learning to be gentle. Look at how carefully she handles the ball. A creature this size could crush it easily, but she chooses not to." The head council member leaned forward. "And the others? Will they learn this too?" Tom smiled as Shadow nudged the ball with her nose, asking to play again. "They already are. Watch." He took out a second ball and rolled it toward the barrier. The adult Night Stalkers tracked its movement. After a moment's hesitation, one of them reached out with a massive paw and gently batted it back. Gasps echoed from the observation deck. "This is just the beginning," Tom said, tossing Shadow's ball again. "Every day, they show us something new. They're not just learning to trust us, they're teaching us to understand them." As if to emphasize his point, Shadow flopped down next to him again, this time rolling onto her back, the ultimate sign of trust from a predator. Her 6 legs waved lazily in the air as Tom scratched her belly. "Soon," he continued, "we'll try introducing more humans, building more bonds, creating a bridge between our species." The head council member watched the adult Night Stalkers, still fascinated by the ball. "You're not taming them at all, are you?" he asked slowly. "You're making friends with them." Tom grinned as Shadow's purring grew louder. "Exactly. And friends are so much better than servants, don't you think?" The answering chirp from Shadow seemed to say she agreed completely. The council chamber buzzed with excitement as Tom stood before them, Shadow looming protectively behind him. What once would have caused panic now drew admiring murmurs. In 6 months, everything had changed. "The integration program has exceeded all expectations," Tom announced proudly. "We now have 12 human handlers working successfully with 23 Night Stalkers." The massive screen behind him showed footage from their training sessions, humans and Night Stalkers working together, running obstacle courses, solving problems, even helping repair space station equipment. "Watch this," Tom said, pointing to one clip. A Night Stalker was carefully lifting a broken solar panel, while its human partner welded it back in place. They understand the concept of teamwork perfectly. They want to help. Shadow rumbled in agreement, her massive head gently bumping Tom's shoulder. Several council members who once would have fled in terror now smiled at the gesture. "But the most fascinating development," Tom continued, "is how they've adapted their pack structure to include us." He brought up a new diagram. Night Stalkers normally live in groups of 8 to 12. Now they're forming mixed packs. Half Night Stalker, half human. The mountain delegate leaned forward. "And they accept this arrangement." Tom grinned. "Accept it. They prefer it. Watch this." The screen showed a new handler, Mark, trying to repair a broken communication array. His Night Stalker partner, seeing him struggle with a heavy piece of equipment, immediately came to help. Without being asked, the creature braced the equipment with its body, giving Mark the perfect angle to work. "They're not just tolerating us," Tom explained. "They're actively seeking ways to work with us. Each mixed pack is developing its own problem-solving methods, its own communication style." Shadow chose that moment to demonstrate. She nudged Tom's pocket where he kept her favorite playing ball. When he didn't respond immediately, she made a soft chirping sound, a vocalization they'd never used before humans arrived. "Yes, yes," Tom laughed, pulling out the ball. The council watched in amazement as the massive predator delicately took it in her jaws. Even more incredible, Tom continued while Shadow played with her ball. "Other Night Stalker packs are seeking us out. Word has spread somehow. We've had 3 wild packs approach our outer colonies in the past week, not to attack, but to make contact." The head council member stood up. "Are you suggesting this could spread? That all Night Stalkers might eventually form partnerships with us?" "Yes." Tom reached up to scratch Shadow behind her ears. "They're highly intelligent and social. Once they understand we're not enemies, they're eager to connect." A younger council member spoke up. "But why? What do they gain from this?" Tom smiled. "The same thing we do. Friendship, cooperation, the chance to be part of something bigger than themselves. Turns out humans aren't the only species that gets lonely in this big galaxy." Shadow dropped her ball and let out a happy rumble that echoed through the chamber. Several council members actually laughed. "Well, Human Reed," the head council member said, "it seems you've done the impossible. You haven't just tamed the galaxy's apex predator. You've made them our allies." Tom shook his head. "Not allies, sir. Family. That's what packs are really all about." Shadow's agreeing purr said everything else that needed to be said. Red emergency lights flooded the space station as alarms screamed through every corridor. Tom raced down the hallway, Shadow matching his pace perfectly despite her massive size. "Status report," he yelled into his communicator. The head council member's voice crackled back, tight with worry. "Reactor breach in Section 7. Cooling systems failing. We have over 3,000 civilians in that sector. Evacuation. The main passages are blocked. Structural damage from the explosion." The council member's voice dropped. "We're looking at 20 minutes before critical failure." Tom reached a viewport and looked out at the damaged section. Smoke poured from several ruptures in the station's hull. Beyond the regular passages, he could see the maintenance tunnels, too small for most species to navigate quickly. But not too small for humans, and definitely not too small for Night Stalkers. "Shadow, call the packs," Tom said firmly. Shadow threw back her head and let out a series of deep, resonating calls. Within moments, answering calls echoed through the station. All around them, humans and Night Stalkers emerged from different sections, moving with purpose. "Listen up," Tom shouted to the gathering groups. "We've got people trapped in Section 7. The tunnels are our only way in. Night Stalkers, you'll need to guide your humans through the dark sections. Humans, help the civilians onto your partners' backs. Move fast but careful." Without hesitation, the mixed packs split up, heading for different maintenance entrances. Shadow led Tom to the nearest access point. "We're going in," Tom reported through his communicator. "Have medical teams standing by." The maintenance tunnels were pitch black, but Shadow moved confidently, her natural ability to see in darkness guiding them. They could hear other packs moving through parallel tunnels, all coordinating their efforts. They found the first group of civilians huddled in a smoke-filled chamber. Some screamed at the sight of Shadow, until they saw Tom. "It's okay," he called out. "They're here to help. Everyone who can walk, follow me. Those who can't, we'll carry you out." Shadow carefully lowered herself, allowing 2 injured people to climb onto her back. Other Night Stalkers arrived, doing the same. The sight of the once feared predators now gently carrying children and elderly citizens was incredible. 15 minutes to critical, warned the communicator. Pack after pack moved through the tunnels, guides in the darkness, carrying those who couldn't walk. Where passages were blocked, Night Stalkers used their strength to clear paths. When some civilians panicked, the creatures remained calm, their presence somehow reassuring. 5 minutes. Last group coming out now, Tom reported, emerging from the tunnel with Shadow. Behind them, a steady stream of humans and Night Stalkers carried the final evacuees to safety. They made it with 2 minutes to spare. As the reactor was finally contained, Tom looked around the emergency shelter. Hundreds of civilians were being treated by medical teams. And there, moving among them, were the Night Stalkers, bringing blankets, carrying supplies, offering comfort. The head council member approached Tom, his scales pale with relief. Without the packs, without their help. Tom nodded, patting Shadow's side. That's what family does. They help each other. Shadow rumbled in agreement, then turned to help a young child who was trying to offer her a thank you pat. The galaxy's deadliest predators had just become its greatest heroes. 1 month after the station crisis, the Grand Council chamber was filled beyond capacity. Representatives from every known species had come to witness something unprecedented. Tom stood in the center, Shadow by his side. But this time, they weren't alone. Behind them stood 20 mixed pairs of humans and Night Stalkers, each showing the same comfortable bond that Tom and Shadow shared. The head council member rose from his seat, his voice carrying across the silent chamber. When Human Reed first suggested working with the Night Stalkers, many thought him insane. Some even laughed. He paused, looking around the room. No one is laughing now. Displays around the chamber showed footage from the station rescue. Night Stalkers guiding people through smoke-filled corridors, carrying injured civilians, working seamlessly with their human partners. In one day, the council leader continued, these creatures save more lives than they had previously taken in a decade. But more importantly, they showed us something about ourselves. Tom felt Shadow's reassuring presence as the head council member approached them. We, the so-called advanced species, try to conquer these beings. We used weapons, barriers, and force. We called them monsters. He gestured to Tom. But humans showed us a better way. They showed us that understanding beats force, that friendship beats fear. Murmurs of agreement filled the chamber. Several council members who had once opposed Tom's project now nodded in support. Therefore, the head council member announced, we are creating a new division within the council, the Interspecies Cooperation Initiative. Human Reed will lead it, with both human and Night Stalker representatives having full council voting rights. The chamber erupted in applause. Shadow let out a happy rumble that echoed through the space. But that's not all. The council leader continued once the noise died down. 3 more wild Night Stalker packs have approached our colonies this week. Not to attack, but to learn. They've seen what their kind can become with human partners. Tom stepped forward. Honored Council, this is just the beginning. Every day, we learn more from each other. The Night Stalkers have insights into space travel we never imagined. They can sense solar storms before our best instruments. They understand gravity waves in ways our scientists are just beginning to grasp. As if to demonstrate, Shadow gracefully moved to a nearby console. Using her claws with surprising delicacy, she pulled up a star chart, marking several previously unknown safe travel routes through dangerous space. They're not just strong allies, Tom explained. They're brilliant partners, and they've taught us something crucial. There are no real monsters in this galaxy, only opportunities for understanding that we've missed. The head council member smiled. Then let this day mark a new chapter in galactic history, where we learn to look past our fears to see the potential in others. As the chamber filled with cheers, Tom looked at Shadow. She gazed back with all 6 eyes, her expression somehow both ancient and wise. Together, they had changed not just their own species' futures, but the very way the galaxy's civilizations would interact. The age of conquest was over. The age of cooperation had begun. And it had all started because one human decided to treat a feared predator not as a beast to be tamed, but as a friend to be made. 5 years had passed since that first nervous encounter in the containment chamber. Tom stood at the helm of the exploration vessel Unity, staring out at an unexplored solar system. Shadow lounged beside his command chair, her massive form a comforting presence. "Ready for another adventure, old friend?" Tom asked, scratching her favorite spot. Shadow's happy rumble shook the deck plates. Behind them, the bridge crew, a mix of humans and night stalkers, worked in perfect harmony. What had once seemed impossible was now wonderfully ordinary. "Captain," called out Mark from his station, his own night stalker partner helping him analyze sensor data. "We're picking up some interesting readings from the third planet." Tom smiled. 5 years ago, no one would have believed night stalkers could handle delicate sensor equipment. Now they were among the best scientific observers in the fleet. "Life signs?" Tom asked. Shadow lifted her head, all 6 eyes focusing on the view screen. She made a series of clicks and growls, the complex language that had developed between the species. "Shadow's right," Mark translated. "The atmospheric composition suggests developing life forms, probably early stages." The Unity carried the first mixed species exploration team. Other ships had followed their example, but Tom and Shadow's vessel remained the flagship of this new age. "Taking us into orbit," Tom announced. "Standard observation protocols." As they moved closer to the planet, Tom thought about how much had changed. Earth had become the galaxy's center for interspecies cooperation. The Night Stalker homeworld, once avoided by all, was now a hub of cultural exchange. Young beings from every species came to learn the art of understanding rather than conquering. Shadow nudged Tom's hand, sensing his reflective mood. She'd grown even larger over the years, but her gentleness had only increased. The savage beasts of legend were now known as some of the galaxy's most nurturing creatures. "Captain," another crew member called out, "Incoming transmission from the Council." The head council member's familiar face appeared on screen. Age had turned his scales silver, but his eyes were bright. "Ah, the Unity. How goes the exploration?" "New life-bearing world discovered," Tom reported proudly. "Shadow's people sensed it before our instruments could confirm it." "Excellent. And how are the new training programs going?" Tom gestured to several young night stalkers working alongside human cadets. "Perfectly. Each generation adapts faster than the last. Soon, this won't even seem remarkable." "It will always be remarkable," the council member corrected gently. "Never forget, you changed the course of galactic history." After the transmission ended, Tom stood and walked to the view screen, shadow padding silently beside him. The planet below them shimmered with potential. "You know what I think, Shadow?" Tom said softly. "I think we didn't just learn to understand each other. We learned to understand ourselves better, too." Shadow pressed her massive head against his shoulder in agreement. Around them, their crew, their pack, continued their work, exploring the unknown reaches of space. They weren't just partners anymore. They weren't just friends. They were proof that the greatest discoveries come not from conquering or controlling, but from having the courage to reach out and connect. And somewhere out there, among the countless stars, more discoveries waited, more connections to be made, more understanding to be found. Tom smiled as Shadow let out an eager rumble. "Yes, girl. Let's go see what's out there." Together, as always, they faced the future. The end.